Okay everyone, now it's the turn of unit number 6, international trade or international aspects, and chapter number 26, AS level economics. The topic is protectionism, and we will look into the basic definition of protectionism, and then we will look into different tools of protectionism that government generally uses, and at the end we will also look into the practical importance of these tools or protectionist measures, and then what happens if government reduces these barriers. And generally examiner asks the question about this topic or is this chapter, okay, assess there are two types of questions. Maybe one question may be like explain question, like explain different methods of protectionism and consider which one of them is the most important. Okay, so this is like the first question that generally examiner asks from this topic, and this is for 8 marks, and at the end of this chapter I'll also explain you how to answer this question as well. So this is for 8 marks. Every explained question is for 8 marks. So this is 8 mark question, and what should be the answering technique for this question, I'll also explain that as well. And the second question is assess question. Examiner may ask assess question, maybe like assess whether protectionism can ever be justified, So this is a 12 marker, and I'll also explain you how to answer this question as well, and at the end of this video. So first of all, what are the methods of protectionism? Like protectionism include protectionism, if we define it, these are the methods that are used by the government to protect local industry from international competition. So this is the basic definition of protectionism. You can write this definition. I'm repeating for you. Protectionism includes all those methods that are used by the government to protect local industry from international competition. So the basic purpose of protectionism is to stop inflow of imports into the country so that more people purchase locally produced goods, and it also helps to flourish the local young industry, as well as it protects the balance of payment position as well. So different methods of protectionism include, number 1 is like tariff, and number 2 is quota. I'll also define these terms as well. And number 3 is embargo, and number 4 is red tape. Number 5 is voluntary export restrictions. Okay, then the last one is exchange controls. So these are different methods of protectionism that government generally uses, and what are the basic meanings of these terms, and how these basically methods can protect local industry from international competition and can correct deficit balance of payment. I'll focus on those parts now. So first of all, tariff is a form of tax, like it is an indirect tax that is imposed on imported goods, right? So when government imposes tariff on imported goods, they will become expensive. So when imports are expensive, then volume of imports will fall. So first of all, price of import increases when government imposes tariff, and when import price is high, quantity demand for imports will fall. And now there are two main benefits of like tariff. One is the volume of import is decreasing, so more people will purchase locally produced goods now, and local industry will flourish. And similarly, like balance of payment deficit is also corrected, right? It also like protects the country from dumping as well, like when some country that produces low priced products, cheaper products, low quality products, and that country basically may be involved in dumping, sending or selling or exporting those goods to the developing countries, low income countries, so that they purchase them, and definitely they earn a lot of money from that. But it is harmful for the country that is importing these dumped goods, right? So if government imposes tariff on these dumped goods, then definitely they will get expensive, and when they are expensive, less people will prefer buying them. So as a result, imports volume will decrease and people will try to purchase locally produced goods. We can also like make a graph for tariff as well, and there are two kinds of graphs that you can make. One is a simple demand and supply diagram like this. For example, this is demand for imports and this is supply of imports. So this is demand for import and this is supply of imports. On X we have quantity of imports, and on Y we have price of imports, and this is origin point, and the intersection point is called equilibrium. So equilibrium price of imported goods is PM and quantity is QM. So whenever government imposes indirect tax, that is tariff, it reduces the supply of imported goods, and when supply decreases, supply curve will shift to the left. So SM, it will move from SM to SM1, and as a result new equilibrium will take place at E1, where the new price of imported goods will be PM1 and equilibrium quantity will be QM1. So this is how imports get expensive and their volume of imports also falls, and it helps to correct deficit balance of payment. And another graph that you can make is a little complicated diagram. So I'll try to make it as simple as possible so that you understand the basic idea. So this is origin point. On X we have like quantity, and this is demand for domestically produced goods. I'm using DD for domestic goods, and this is supply of domestically produced goods, SD, and on Y we have price. Okay, so in the domestic market, equilibrium takes place at E, where the price of domestically produced goods is PD and quantity is QD. Now if government if already the volume of import, or basically supply of imported goods, is shown by this red line, so the price of imports will be PM, and this is foreign supply curve. I'm using FS for foreign supply, like supply of imported goods. If the price of imported goods is PM and the price of domestically produced goods is PD, what do you think consumers will do, whether they will purchase imported good or they will purchase locally produced goods? So the answer should be they will prefer imported goods because imported goods are cheaper. But against this price PM, domestic suppliers will supply this much quantity QS, and the domestic consumers will purchase this much quantity, that is QD. So the gap between QS and QD is shortage, and you can label shortage here as well. So shortage is from point A to B. Okay, so this shortage is satisfied by importing goods from other countries, because domestic suppliers are only supplying QS quantity, but domestic consumers are demanding QD quantity of goods. So demand is greater than supply. When demand is greater than supply, then the extra demand is met through imports. So the volume of imports is initially from A to B, or from QD, from QS to QD. So when government imposes indirect tax, that is tariff, then price of imported goods will increase, and the new price will be PM plus T. And when price of imported goods increases from PM to PM plus T after tax, then you can see the shortage has decreased, right, from point C to D, and now the quantity demand is, let's say, QD1, which is lesser than earlier, and quantity supplied is QS1, that is more than the previous quantity supplied by the domestic producers. So now domestic producers have increased some supply and domestic consumers have decreased some demand. So as a result, the volume of shortage has decreased from AB to CD. So the new shortage will be the gap between C to D, which is much lesser than earlier. So initially the volume of import was this much. The new volume of import will be this much, from QD1 to QS1 to QD1. So this is the new volume of import, which is much lesser than earlier. So this is how, if government imposes tariff on imports, imports get expensive, and as a result the volume of imports falls and local demand for local goods will rise and domestic industry will flourish, as well as balance of payment deficit will also be corrected. Okay, so now moving to the evaluation point of tariff. When government imposes tariff, it is not always beneficial, rather it has some problems as well. And the problems may include, like, if local young industry or local aging industry even depends on imported raw material, then tax imposed on imported raw material will be expensive, and as a result local industry will suffer instead of improving. And similarly, if taxes imposed on, like, imported machinery, technology and tools, then again local industry will again suffer. So tariff is not always beneficial, rather it has some drawbacks or problems as well. Then coming to the quota. Quota is a physical limitation on the quantity of goods that can be imported from the other countries. This is kind of physical limitation. And when government imposes a physical limitation on quantity of imports, then volume of imports will decrease, and as a result people will purchase less imports and balance of payment will be corrected, and at the same time the demand for local industry will increase. So local young industry and sunset industry both will benefit from that. Young industry is the industry that has just set up and it is basically growing, and the aging industry or sunset industry is the declining industry. So both will be protected if government imposes tariff on imports. And balance of payment, definitely balance of payment will also be corrected. And then is embargo. Embargo is complete sanction, or it is 100% ban on imports. We also call it zero quota. So when government puts 100% ban on imports, then it means you cannot import even a single quantity from any other country. Then as a result, when imports don't come in, as a result local industry will flourish, people will purchase more locally produced goods, and the volume of imports will be controlled and balance of payment will also be corrected. Moving to the red tape. Red tape is a trade restriction where government basically makes it difficult for the importers in terms of, like, documentations and procedures. They are made complicated. Documentations and procedures are made complicated, so importers have to go through complicated documentation and procedures. As a result, they avoid importing goods from other countries because it is really hectic for them to import. Voluntary export restriction is another important thing that generally may happen to correct deficit balance of payment and protect local young industry from international competition. Voluntary export restriction is also written as VER, and this is kind of restriction which is put by the exporting country on its own exporters to stop selling goods to a certain country. For example, if Pakistan is facing deficit because of greater exports of China, because Pakistan is importing goods from China, so Pakistan is suffering from deficit because of higher exports of China, and China may support Pakistan by asking its exporters not to export goods to Pakistan so that the balance of payment of Pakistan can be corrected. Although practically it seems like very difficult, because no one wants to stop their exporters to export, because they also want their industry and their economy to grow. However, practically it seems about impossible, but theoretically this is the concept that may happen. Exchange control is another method that government can use basically, and it limits the reach of consumers on the foreign currency that can be used to import goods and services. For example, if government does not allow anyone to import goods more than $2,000 per year, then it will definitely control the volume of imports coming into the country, because once you have imported goods worth 2,000 now, you will be stopped automatically to import further goods in that year, right? So in the next year you may purchase further imports, but for now you will be stopped once you have made purchases of $2,000. Now coming to the evaluation points, I have also already told you what tariff is basically, and how tariff can be harmful to the country, because it makes imported raw material, machinery, technology, tools expensive, and other measures also basically stop imports. And if the local industry was importing raw material, machinery, technology and tools, and because of these protectionist measures, if they are unable to import, then definitely their production will stop or may reduce, and it may create unemployment in the local industry as well. Okay, so I can quickly give a review in Urdu of all these protectionist measures. First of all is tariff. Tariff imports पे जो गवर्नमेंट टैक्स लगाती है, that is called tariff, और tariff imports को एक्सपेंसिव कर देता है जब टैक्स लगेगा. जैसे आईफोन अगर आप इंपोर्ट करवा रहे हैं, सो आईफोन पे जब टैक्स गवर्नमेंट और बढ़ा देगी, आईफोन और एक्सपेंसिव हो जाएगा. एज अ रिज़ल्ट कम लोग होंगे जो इंपोर्ट करवाएंगे, उससे सप्लाई भी कम हो जाएगी. लेकिन इससे कंपटीशन भी थोड़ा रिड्यूस हो जाता है, तो लोकल प्रोड्यूसर्स फिर ओवर चार्ज भी करना शुरू कर देते हैं. लेकिन टैरिफ का नुकसान ये है कि जब आप इंपोर्टेड रॉ मटेरियल, मशीनरी, टेक्नोलॉजी ख़रीद रहे होते हैं दूसरी कंट्रीज से, टैक्स की वजह से इंपोर्ट करना मुश्किल हो जाएगा. सो इंडस्ट्री फिर आपकी सफ़र करेगी, जो लोकल इंडस्ट्री आपकी इंटरनेशनल रॉ मटेरियल पे डिपेंड कर रही होती है. कोटा इज़ द फिज़िकल लिमिट के कितनी क्वांटिटी आप इंपोर्ट करवा सकते हैं. अगर गवर्नमेंट क्वांटिटी इंपोर्ट को चेक कर देती है, कंट्रोल कर देती है, जैसे आईफोन की हम एग्जांपल ले लें. आईफोन गवर्नमेंट कहती है नहीं, 1000 आईफोन से ज़्यादा एक कंट्री में, एक पाकिस्तान में एक साल से ज़्यादा नहीं आएंगे. तो इट मीन्स के 1000 के बाद फिर लोगों को अलाउ नहीं होगा कि वो फर्दर आईफोन जो है वो इम्पोर्ट करवा सकें. सो इससे इंपोर्ट्स का वॉल्यूम कम होता है, फिर लोकल गुड्स की डिमांड बढ़ती है. एम्बार्गो 100% बैन होता है, गवर्नमेंट बिल्कुल स्टॉप कर देती है कि भाई आप बिल्कुल ही इंपोर्ट नहीं करवा सकते. रेड टेप होता है कि इंपोर्ट प्रोसेस को मुश्किल कर देती है गवर्नमेंट, डॉक्यूमेंटेशन प्रोसीजर्स को टफ कर देती है. वॉलंटरी एक्सपोर्ट रिस्ट्रिक्शन होता है कि जो एक्सपोर्टिंग कंट्री वो अपने एक्सपोर्टर्स को कहते हैं कि किसी सर्टन कंट्री को आप अपनी एक्सपोर्ट्स कम कर दें. जैसे चाइना पाकिस्तान की मैंने एग्जांपल ली. अगर चाइना पाकिस्तान की हेल्प करना चाहता है और चाइना उनको कहता है कि भाई आप पाकिस्तान को एक्सपोर्ट्स कम करें ताकि एक्सपोर्ट्स पाकिस्तान का बैलेंस ऑफ पेमेंट ठीक हो जाए. सो इस तरह से प्रैक्टिकली तो हमें नहीं नज़र आता कि कोई करता हो, लेकिन थेरेटिकली एक पॉसिबिलिटी होती है. एक्सचेंज कंट्रोल्स का ये है कि आपको एक फ़ॉरेन करेंसी तक जो रीच है उसको लिमिट कर दिया जाता है. जैसे $2000 की मैंने एग्जांपल ली कि $2000 से ज़्यादा की इंपोर्ट्स आप एक साल में नहीं करवा सकते. अगर इस तरह की रेस्ट्रिक्शंस गवर्नमेंट लगा ले तब भी इंपोर्ट्स वॉल्यूम कम हो जाते हैं. अच्छा, अब हम मूव करते हैं. नाउ वी कैन मूव टू दीज क्वेश्चंस दैट आई टोल्ड यू अर्लियर. और पहला जो क्वेश्चन है, द फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन है, इसके लिए यू हैव टू अटेम्प्ट solve 3 assessment objectives: assessment objective 1, assessment objective 2, assessment objective 3. Assessment objective 1 is knowledge, assessment objective 2 is analysis, assessment objective 3 is evaluation. And there are 2 marks for evaluation, 3 marks for analysis and 3 marks for knowledge. 3 marks for knowledge. What will you write for knowledge point? First of all, you will define what protectionism is. You will have to identify different methods that I have listed here: tariff, quota, embargo. And then you can define those like tariff, quota and embargo, and then you can analyze them, how tariff can can be used to correct deficit balance of payment, or can be used to protect local young industry from international competition, how it is important for the local industry. And then quota, embargo, you have to explain at least 3 points that will help to, that are used as protectionism, and how they can basically improve the economy in terms of protecting local young industry from international competition, as well as in terms of correcting balance of payment deficit. And at the end, you will evaluate and identify any one of them, and you can say that in conclusion, although all the methods have their own importance, but tariff is the most important factor that should be considered, because it causes more retaliation by the other countries, and it increases the prices of raw material, imported raw material, machinery, technology and tools. So local industry that uses imported raw material, technology, tools, and it will be affected a lot. So this is how you can basically conclude it. And the second question is, assess whether protectionism can ever be justified. Again, you have to give like assessment objective 1, 2, 3, all 3 assessment objectives, assessment objective 1, 2 and assessment objective 3. Again, knowledge, analysis and evaluation. But now knowledge and analysis part collectively like comprise 8 marks, and assessment objective 3 is for 4 marks. But in 12 mark question, you have to write against the given like technique, method or tool, and then you have to conclude that, right? So again, you will say how protectionism can be justified. You will again define what protectionism is and how protectionism can be justified, like these methods, tariff, quota, embargo, how they can help the local young industry and aging industry to flourish further, how it protects like employment in the local industry and helps the government economically grow. And then after like talking about the favorable points of protectionism, you will say however these methods can be harmful to an economy as well. So you will now write against these points, like tariff increases the price of imports and so on and so forth. I have already explained that. And you have to talk against these methods, and then at the end you have to conclude that. So this is how you can write answer to the 12 mark question and 8 mark question, right? So same both questions will never come at the same time. These questions may be like alternatively tested by the examiner. At one time examiner may use like this question, and at another time examiner may give you the second question, that is 12 mark question. So for both you have to give knowledge, analysis and evaluation, right? When you are answering question number 2, again you have to give knowledge of protectionism and different methods of protectionism, and then analyze how these methods can be justified. When we say that justified, mean why they are important, how they correct balance of payment deficit, how they correct help the local industry to flourish, right? So this is it for this lesson, and inshallah see you with the next lesson soon. Allah Hafiz.